Good morning to one and all. The Honorable Carlos James, Minister of Tourism, Sustainable Development, Civil Aviation, and very importantly, Culture. Mr. Ricardo Adams, Chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation. In our midst, I see Ms. Maxine Brown, Cultural Officer. I also see some of the heavy hitters in Carnival, Luther, Skinny, Lester in the far corner, members of the print and electronic media, especially VC3, NBC Radio, and Star Radio, the three entities that are taking this morning's press conference live. Let me start by saying that Vincimas has been the medium through which our Vincentian artists and artisans express their skills and talents. And over the years, this festival has generated millions of dollars in our economy on an annual basis. Unfortunately, Vincimas 2020 and 2021 were canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, the eruption of La Soufrière. What happened then is that the components, Pan, Mas, Calypso, and all the others who depended on Vincimas had to shelve what they were doing, and it affected them greatly financially and also psychologically. Bearing all these factors in mind, the CDC developed a plan to be executed for Vincimas 2022. Let me say that our efforts to get Vincimas 2022 on the way were well supported and continue to be supported by our present minister, as well as his permanent secretary. They have been with us all the way. And for this, Mr. Minister, I say a hearty thank you. Today, we come here to update you, the media, the public, on our plans for Vincimas 2022. So let me welcome one and all, the media, our practitioners, the listening public, and I'll turn it over now to our chairman, who would update us on what we can expect for Vincimas 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO. Minister of Tourism, Sustainable Development, Civil Aviation, and again, most importantly, Culture, members of the media, practitioners, friends of Vincimas, persons listening to us all over, either directly on the radio stations or following us on the social media platforms. Good morning. A representative team from the CDC met with the Cabinet of St. Vincent and the Grenadines last Thursday to discuss the possibilities of holding Vincimas 2022. The discussions were vigorous, with a number of views being tabled, but largely the CDC proposal was deemed acceptable within the limitations of the current protocols. In summary, the Cabinet directed that Vincimas 2022 can happen with the following provisions. A full Vincimas can happen if the nation achieves a 70% vaccination rate by the end of March 2022. The CDC has undertaken to work with stakeholders to do an active drive to see whether we can achieve this goal. If this goal is not achieved, Vincimas will be a fully vaccinated series of events, just as the CDC had proposed. The feeling is that there's need for a larger, more inclusive scale of Vincimas for it to be truly successful. But that will depend on the rate of vaccination and the state of the COVID pandemic at that time. All plans for Vinci Mass are obviously subject to change, and at all times we will be guided by the updated protocols as issued by the CMO and the security authorities. Should there be a reversal of fortunes and the event has to be cancelled, the CDC has been required to make a proposal for a rational compensation package to financially dislocated practitioners of the art form to be approved by the Cabinet. The CDC and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines look forward to hosting the best possible Vinci Mass 2022 in the interest of all of the stakeholders of Vinci Mass and for the nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To that end, I will go a little bit into the program and into some of the other things that the CDC has been doing over the last couple of years. As you would recognize, we had a wonderful media launch in 2020, and that was basically the end of Vinci Mass for the last 2 years. So I'm really happy that we can be meeting with you guys and speaking to you all again about Vinci Mass. What we have proposed is 2 weekends of events which would take place over the traditional Vinci Mass period. And the weekend begins on, and let me say a special welcome to the Englishman, the fireman, the mega dog, triple X, pound for pound, all of these wonderful terminologies. So we're basically going to follow the same period from Friday the 24th of June to Tuesday the 5th of July. And I think it's important that we get those dates out because there's been a little bit of confusion as to the dates of Vinci Mass. So I just want to reiterate, we're going to run from Friday, June 24th to Tuesday the 5th of July. And we begin on Friday, June 24th with a launch party for Vinci Mass. And that party will be a party that encompasses the energy and embraces the energy of Vinci Mass, featuring all the heavy hitters of our culture. And that, we think, would be a fitting way to kick off the re-energized Vinci Mass 2022. On Saturday, we'll have a junior carnival, which is intended to be a fun day for the children. And one of the things that we've recognized is, as the protocols stand now, they do not allow for any level of street parade. And so therefore, what we will do is bring the children into an enclosed outdoor environment where they can express themselves, enjoy themselves, and have almost like a fun day. So it will be a fun day for the children, and at this point in time, the intent is for that to be in Victoria Park. On Sunday, we're looking at having the semifinals, the Calypso, Raga Soca, and Soca semifinals in a single event, and that is expected to be an all-day event that begins sometime in during the day and goes until just shortly after the dark. And that again, we're hoping, and as I said, all plans are subject to change based on changing protocols, based on changing circumstances, but we're hoping that we can have that at what was the old Emerald Isle Casino grounds down in Pembroke. And so that will allow for a picnic style, again, open air, allow for social and physical distancing, and a lot of breeze blowing through. And that happens on Sunday, June the 26th. On Friday, July the 1st, we go back to the Evo, which is a show for those who are unfamiliar with it. It's a show that basically showcases the evolution of Vinci music over particularly the last 40 plus years of Vinci Mass, and that we intend to have at the cruise ship. On Saturday, July 2nd, we're looking at having the Soca Monarch in Victoria Park. Of course, the numbers will be restricted as the protocols allow. And I don't think I need to say very much about Soca Monarch in Victoria Park. Persons know that the heat generated inside there will probably be enough to sanitize anyone coming into the into the venue. Um, on Sunday, July 3rd, we'll have Pan Kai Mas, which is a show that has the Pan finals, the Calypso finals, and a mass display, again at Victoria Park. On Monday, July 4th, we're looking at having the traditional Juve, probably on the steps of the grammar school or somewhere in that area, because unfortunately, realistically, we know that does not normally attract a very large crowd. So we think that we can get away with that in a small area where there's a display stage. And what we're looking at is the modern bands, which tend to be the paint bands, etc. We're looking at them having a bubble party where they can do their paint, and a lot of them have been doing this for years. There was a pre-Juve gathering, so they'd have a party in a venue, and then they'd hit the streets. What we're basically doing is removing the hitting the streets, but you can still go into enclosed venues and have your events. We're looking at the same for the Monday T-shirt band, so you can have a T-shirt band party in an enclosed venue, exercising your protocols and controls. And then on Tuesday, the proposal is for the costume bands to be able to go to the tarmac of the old E.T. Joshua and use the northern end of the runway and be able to do a level of parading in front of the judges, and then the bands can return to their bubbles and have their parties in that area. That allows us a fairly large area. It allows us to use multiple stationary music points so that the masqueraders can get the feel of music. And it allows us, obviously, if we have to move the masqueraders, because you can't judge masqueraders in a stationary position. It's called mass on the move. So we have to be able to move the masqueraders past the judges. So those are the proposals that have been put forward at this point in time. Obviously, we've gone through with the CMO all of the protocols that are required for these, and those will include multiple sanitization stations. Those will include persons having to be vaccinated and appropriately boosted to get into the events. And that includes not only the participants, that also includes the persons who are working in the background, the people in the bars, the production personnel, etc. All right. There are things that are specific to shows that are going to involve sanitization of microphones when they're being passed from artist to artist, etc. There's a question of doing levels of isolation between backstage and front stage, so there's not a lot of mixing, etc. And as I said, all of these are the protocols that apply now. It is very difficult for anybody to predict what protocols will apply 6 months down the road, but it was important for us to get the sanction to be able to start planning Vinci Mass, because as you all know, Vinci Mass is not something that you can put on in 6 weeks. There's a tremendous amount of planning going into it. And in fact, one of the things that has happened is that in our original proposal, we had actually had Miss SVG in the Vinci Mass period, but we've now moved Miss SVG a little further down to allow, because again, Miss SVG requires a longer period of preparation than most of the other components. So we've moved Miss SVG back to where we were proposing to put it 2 years ago, which is back into the independence period. So Miss SVG is now going to take place on Saturday the 29th of October Independence Day for St. Vincent and the Grenadines is Thursday the 27th, so the Saturday immediately following. That would give them a much better opportunity to select the level of candidates that we normally look for in Miss SVG, and to do the level of preparation that we expect from a Miss SVG committee. Um, Apart from that, there's some stuff that's been going on in the background, and as I said, the last time that we met, we did a lot. We had a fanfare launch of the Vinci Mas logo, and we've changed in the Vinci Mas branding to Vinci Mas being a single word, etc. And we did all of these wonderful things, and we never got to show it to the world. So we're very happy that for Vinci Mas 2022, we can fully launch our logo, we can fully relaunch our brand. We're actively working on rolling out our new website within the very near future. I've been advised it's 99% complete. I think what we're waiting on is we're going to add some merchandising capability to the website, because one of the things that we're doing, I don't know if persons saw some construction activities going on downstairs, is that the CDC is going to be opening a carnival shop and lounge downstairs of this office here, where we can bring in carnival materials to facilitate particularly the smaller mass bands who are faced with increasing travel costs, the time required to go to Trinidad to purchase materials, which is where most of them get them from, etc. So what we thought, in discussion with those entities, is that we can bring in materials here and make it easier for them and less costly, because unfortunately what happens, there are 14 mass bands and 14 of them go independently to Trinidad to buy materials. So everybody's incurring ticket costs, accommodation costs, etc. So we think by the CDC being almost a bulk purchasing entity, we can reduce the cost and reduce the time that they have to spend away from the band. So we're working on that actively downstairs. So there have been things happening in the background in preparation for what we really had hoped would be a Vinci Mas, and we're very happy, we're very thankful that the government has given consideration to having Vinci Mas 2022, because otherwise you would have seen a lot of long faces on my right and on my left, where the practitioners would be saying another year, and unfortunately, we've actually started seeing some of the people dropping out of the art form. I got stories of guys who were soca artists a couple of years ago and doing well in the soca artist business, who now van conductors, and so because there's just no option for them to in the creative space at this point in time. Some people have managed to still release music and do well, but that has been largely restricted to you're doing it on the international market. We're now hoping that Vinci Mas 2022 will allow all of our budding practitioners to come back. I think Lester has about 50 songs on hold. I don't know how many Fireman has. I know Luther has. I know Skinny has been releasing and continues to release. I'm pretty sure that Madzart, we know every morning he wakes up, he writes another song. So there are a lot of people with material out there just waiting for the opportunity to get it to the public. So we're really thankful that we have this as an opportunity for our practitioners to get back in the game. And of course, I'm not going to leave out the sponsors, because as you know, we get a subvention from the government, and the National Lottery is always fully supportive of us in the cultural era. But we also rely on the participation of sponsors. And so we will be coming to the sponsors in short order with proposals for partnering with us again for Vinci Mas. We will be coming with some perhaps non-traditional sponsorship packages and opportunities. So look out for the CDC caravan coming to knock on your door in very short order. But I think all in all, we would love it to be as big as possible. I say to people, the more vaccinated a nation we become, the more it allows us to grow the festival at this point in time until protocols change. So we are going to do what we can, but as a minimum at this point in time, we are prepared and we are preparing actively to put on, as a minimum, a vaccinated Vincimas, which I refer to as Vaximas. So Vincimas is now Vaximas. Um, and, I think that if we all work together and we put our best foot forward, we can continue to show the world that Vincimas is the hottest carnival in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have to do them again, right? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well said. Let me once again just welcome all the practitioners. I must, of course, welcome back, fireman. Right. As I indicated before, our minister and our permanent secretary, they have been with us all the way. And of course, at this press conference, the minister must be here to share his views and to share also the government views. So, Mr. Minister.
All right, thank you very much, Ashford, CEO of the Carnival Development Corporation, and thank you very much, Chair, for such a comprehensive layout of the activities to come for Vincimas 2022. We have been nearly 2 years in the making, putting together the logistics to have a safe Vincimas, and I think the important word here is the safety of all patrons, visitors, locals who are participating in Vincimas 2022. Immediately from the outset, I told the CDC, if we're going to have a carnival, we have to put a comprehensive plan together. And from the very outset, we have to work with the Ministry of Health, the CMO, through her representative, to develop what would be considered the safest way in which we can host a Vincimas 2022, despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. They have put together a proposal which the Cabinet approved, and with the blessing of the Cabinet, they are here today to essentially outline how Vincimas 22 will take shape. And I'm quite happy to see the hard work of the board of the CDC and the team, and I want to commend them for their work along with the CMO for putting together this comprehensive plan that ensures the safety of our Vincimas 2022. Hosting a Vincimas is, more importantly, not just the economic side of things, but the creative industry. And importantly, providing the platform for our creatives to make a living, to develop on their talent, and to ensure the continuity of our traditional components of Vincimas as we know it. We know it's been a very long road for a lot of the practitioners within the creative industry. Pankai Mas, particularly the mass men. There are some entertainers within the performing industry who have not traveled, apart from perhaps Luther, I understand last year made $1 million. Skinny and Fireman, who who had to resort to staying abroad because of the pandemic to really earn a living. Some of these folks are involved in the creative industry. They are full-time practitioners. And to not have a Vinci Mass is really putting those practitioners, including the mass men and all of the other creatives, at a disadvantage. And we thought it best to really see how we can put all of the arrangements in place to facilitate all of our creatives and to ensure the safety of the activities in which we intend to have. I know the microscope is now going to be on the CDC. How is this going to work? Well, first off, the position of the cabinet is that we want to have a Vinci Mass that includes a wider participation of Vincentians. And to do that, we will need the blessing of the CMO. And that would entail getting our herd immunity up to a particular level to have a wider participation of the entire nation within a Vinci Mass 2022. And that is the first goal and the first target. But if it is that we are not likely to have that, then a more controlled environment that factors in the safety of patrons and having these activities within what we call a safe zone or safe zones scattered across St. Vincent on the mainland to host activities centered around our Vinci Mass 2022. And it's important that though we are hosting this, and I keep stressing on the word, the safety of our patrons is the most important and critical thing within this whole exercise. And if we felt that the CDC weren't able to put together a comprehensive plan that ensured the safety of patrons, we would not be having a Vinci Mass 2022. So we want to work with all of the stakeholders, the mass men. I think it was that on Saturday we had a meeting with representatives across the board, the mass men, the Yolopan movement representative, promoters, entertainers, producers. And the general consensus was everyone seemingly is on board with having a Vinci Mass 2022 and want to work within the confines and the perimeters that ensures the safety of the patrons. And I think collectively all of us have that responsibility to ensure that and to work towards that. We have to be disciplined in this exercise. We have to ensure that all of the protocols are adhered to, and we can't put aside the protocols that will be set in relation to the CMO and the Ministry of Health as to how we proceed with these activities. So again, I want to commend the CDC and all of the stakeholders who will be participating and writing music, producing, building mass, tuning pan, arranging music. This festival is ours, and if we don't actively participate, we don't actively host an event of this nature, we will naturally see some of the challenges which we've had over the years. Music will not be produced. Mass men will not earn an income. Artists who normally rely on Vinci Mass as a platform for the exposure to develop their talent will naturally wither away, and we have to really save the industry and save our creatives by putting on the safest possible carnival, the hottest carnival, but also the safest possible carnival for Vinci Mass 2022. And these are the things that we have to look at, and it takes the collective will of every single stakeholder to be responsible in this regard. And I want to stress on that point, but also to continue to commend all of you for playing an important role in this exercise. Just briefly off topic, but within the similar context, we have heard the conversation surrounding emerging technology and promoting our Vinci Mass within these types of platforms and spaces. And I want to say that we will appoint from the ministry Mr. Calvert Jones as an advisor locally, though we have other stakeholders who we are working with, to advise both the minister and also CDC on an approach to embark, and very vigorously, on developing a platform to facilitate exporting our culture, Vinci Mas in particular, but other creative components to our culture, globally through technology using the metaverse. And I stress the point because very early when I mentioned this at the budget in Parliament, a lot of persons didn't have a clear understanding of what I had indicated then, which is not to replace our traditional and existing Vinci Mas, but to have an additional platform where our creatives can earn an income by exporting their talent in Southeast Asia, in the Pacific, in Eastern Europe, and other places around the world. A place, for instance, like Japan has a population of 125 or so million people. Some of them perhaps never heard of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They know there's a place somewhere in the Caribbean, and also might not have heard of Vinci Mas. But we will be using all of the available tools at our disposal and emerging technology to export our creatives and to expose them to a wider target audience for them to earn additional income to support what they would make locally as it relates to Vinci Mas. So just to clear the air on that, it's not to replace Vinci Mas, it is in fact happening, but to provide additional mediums for our creatives to earn income and to export our creatives to a wider target audience and to export our country's natural resources electronically. And this is important because it's cultural tourism. And since we have made that announcement to explore the possibility of using augmented reality to export our culture, we have had phone calls from persons in international organizations such as the Organization of American States, Meta, which is in fact owned by Facebook. I would mention a telecommunications company headquartered regionally, persons in the diaspora in Canada, in North America, in Europe, even here locally within the Caribbean, who are pretty much saying that St. Vincent is on the edge, leading the way in this exercise, and that very likely they would want to see this develop and they would want to be a part of this, not just for St. Vincent and the Grenadines alone, but the entire Caribbean. Recently, we have had an announcement by a member of parliament in Jamaica, also exploring the possibility of the Jamaican creatives being branded and exported within that space and that platform. So I want us to take this thing seriously. There is serious revenue potential to be earned from it for creatives. And we're doing this not to replace, as I said again, Vinci Mas as in its current form, but to give our creatives an additional platform to earn revenue. Some of them earn revenue within the Vinci Mas season, and then that's it. While other Vincentians may have regular jobs that they go to. We have to provide all of the necessary and available means for them to earn an income. So I'm very happy again to go back to the local Vinci Mas, which we've been planning for some time for 2022. I'm very excited about the announcement of a Vinci Mas 2022, but also there are greater things in store for a Vinci Mas, which naturally the CDC will work to develop on that. On another side note, but similar to the conversation, from the ministry, we intend to also establish a working group, a commission in which also the chair from the CDC will be a part of, to begin work to revise our cultural landscape And I'm talking about developing a comprehensive working plan to put all of the available modalities in place. We're talking about the National Cultural Foundation, the CDC, all of the relevant creative industries and practitioners and so on. So come together under an umbrella to see how we can really fully develop our creative industry and our sector to facilitate again our creatives. We can no longer look at earning an income as a seasonal thing for creatives. I want to see artisans earning serious income. And they also have to pay taxes. Income that they can also be taxed on, but income which they can comfortably go to the bank and say, I am a creative, I want a loan, this is my income, and I want to expand my business. And we have to put in place the platform and the resources. We have to make it available for our creatives. This is a year that we're talking about transformation within tourism, we're talking about transformation within culture and the creative industries. And this is the year that we have to do that. And I'm very keen on working with all of the stakeholders, including the Department of Culture, to see how best we can put all of the necessary legislative and infrastructure framework in place to facilitate that. I also just want to mention, and this has just been announced recently, that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as a destination, has been voted Island of the Year at the 27th International Caribbean World Awards, hosted by the Caribbean World magazine based in London, UK. And it's really an achievement which is quite notable, particularly 2021, a year when we were faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, the explosive eruption of our Lasso volcano, and also we experienced a hurricane. And it was one of the most challenging periods in our post-colonial history, I would believe. And to be singled out for an award for the Island of the Year, taking all of the islands within the Caribbean and so on, and it's really an achievement which I'm indeed proud of for our people and our country. And we have a gem here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we have to work to holistically develop it, both from a tourism side and the human resource capital and the economy, but also importantly, we have to create the platform and the space for our creatives to flourish and for our creatives to bloom. And it starts now, and it starts within this period. And we have to work extremely hard to develop on that. I want to thank you, and we're open to questions from the head table.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. And as you notice, you only had 3 speakers up front. So we're going to open up the floor now for questions, comments, etc. Just like to welcome Kaba. He is the president of the Calypsonians Association, hardworking gentleman. So, up to you all now, the media. I know we've been good, but we ain't been all that good that they have no question.
All right, so if I go back a little bit, the 70% allows us to have a free, unrestricted carnival. So what the government has said is that if we get to 70%, that we have Vincimas as usual. The program that I presented is the one that if we do not get to 70%, that is basically the program that will take place. But for instance, if we do get to the 70% and we have the free unrestricted carnival, then there's no need for us, for instance, to go to the tarmac to have an event. We can have Tuesday in Kingstown as usual. So what I presented in detail was the program that will obtain if we do not achieve the 70%. So if things remain as they are under the current protocols, that is the program that would obtain. Right? So if we achieve the 70%, we get better and we're allowed larger space to work, etc. But then that basically takes us back. And what we've done is we've presented the restricted version because it is easier then to free up protocols and become more open than to work with an open version and then have to lock it down. Right? So what we've presented is the program under the current COVID protocols.
Yeah, but you might say Carnival, the spontaneous kind of things, and to the control any movement was very difficult. So, how you plan to deal with issues like that?
Well, I think one of the issues that has raised its head significantly in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the recent past is that there are events that apply for all the COVID protocols. They go through the CMO, they go through the security offices, etc. And they're following all of the rules and regulations. They're following all of the rules and regulations. And while they're following all of the rules and regulations, you can walk outside of those parties and walk 100 yards up the road and go into events that are not meeting rules and regulations and have things. One of the things is we have requested a meeting with the security authorities, and we are going to raise that as a serious concern, not only to be applied during the 10-day period of Vincimas, but to be applied going forward. Because really, if we're asking, I mean, right now we have a lot of, we've basically shut down events in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the last, for the next month or whatever the period is. But really, if we're going to open back up and we're going to ask promoters to invest in having events that require protocols, and one of the things is, what we've presented here is just the CDC events. We anticipate that there will be private promoters who will want to have events during those periods, and they will be subject to the same protocols as we've outlined here, or whatever the protocols are in June. It is going to be really unfair and really difficult for event promoters and the CDC to be trying to have events, trying to keep the country safe by having events that follow the protocols, only to see that outside of that space, that people are on a free-for-all. And so that is something that we intend to, and we've requested a meeting with the security services, and that is something that we intend very much to be dealt with. Obviously, the CDC is not a police force, so we can't go out there and shut down any external events. But you see, because what happens is you may have a scenario where the CDC is putting on events, or there are events during that period, and people are doing what they feel like on the outside and not following protocols, and there's a spike. But the only thing people remember is that the CDC and some private promoters had events, right? And I think, unfortunately, that's one of the things that has happened in the recent past, where you've had events and you've had a lot of other stuff happening around the Christmas period. And at the end of it, there seems to be a feeling that people largely remember the events and don't remember what else was happening on a national level. So while, as I said, we can't control it, we can speak to the authorities and ask that if we're going to put on a vaccinated mass, vaccinated Vinci mass, then we can't have uncontrolled events all over the country, because if there happens to be a spike afterwards, everybody knows that the spotlight would be on the vaccinated events for Vinci mass. Now, of course, I'm very hopeful that we are seeing the back end of COVID, and that even if we do not achieve the 70%, that globally COVID is going to be depressed in the June, July period. As I said, I am hopeful. I never pretend to be a deity, so I can't say that I know for sure and can read the future. But I'm hopeful that that is the case, and if that is the case, as I said, the better off we are, the more the more persons we can let into our events, and the larger Vencimas is going to be. Sure.
If I, if I can just add a comment to the point raised by William Anthony, and also the comment from the chairman. A lot of the events outside of what CDC has any control over, and the private promoters who will be applying to the CDC for approval to have those events, is largely dependent on the police or proper policing. And I want to also make this urgent appeal to the police services. I know the Commissioner of Police has a representative on the CDC board, and it's very important that we also work closely with the police to ensure that the security, as you mentioned, at events across the entire country, there's proper policing to ensure the safety of persons, even outside of the control of the CDC. And I think it takes a national effort, and it takes an effort which covers across not just the CDC, but other stakeholders which are involved, including our police force. And it's important that we look at that aspect of it. And it's a very important question you raise. But we'll be relying heavily on the police to, on this occasion, particularly during this season, CDC is not going to take the responsibility of the possibility of major spikes at events that they have not sanctioned, or events that are outside of their control. And the police has a very important role to ensure the safety of persons and to generally enforce the statutory rules and orders that are there, the existing ones. And we have to start that process and looking at that seriously.
Question, comments?
Well, there's something that really bothered me for a long time. I noticed that we are not doing proper documentation. Proper documentation. And I was hoping, congratulations for the work you do around here. I was expecting to see portraits on this page. For instance,
You have started.
but you know, so that was that, you know. And we have a lot of image at CDC. You have mass men who passed on. I would like to see a portrait on the wall. You have ministers. We would like to see a portrait on the wall. The chairman, Ambrose, Ms. Rodriguez. We should. I'm pretty sure have a section with all the entertainers, and that's something I'm not seeing. And when you go to Barbados, you can see all the singers or Calypsonian, wherever. On the wall. I wonder if there's anything in the pipeline.
Okay, well, the first thing I must mention, I'm not sure if you realize that the CDC conference room looks a little different than it did 2 years ago. So we've actually done some work on the conference room, and one of the intentions is to put the chairpersons of the boards over the years as portraits here, and we've discussed on the outside of doing like a Hall of Fame wall kind of thing. The lounge that we're doing downstairs is, and sometimes it's difficult to capture as much of it in physical format when you can do a lot more in digital format. So for instance, one of the things that's going to be happening downstairs is that it will be a continuous promotion of Vincimas and the practitioners of Vincimas, etc. But beyond that, interestingly, at our board meeting last night, we had the discussion about putting together a project to really take firm ownership of a lot more of Vinci Mass's history in digital format. Because we intend, and that is one of our goals, we intend that in the future, somebody can come to the CDC and say, okay, I'm doing research on Vinci Mass. Can I go into your archives and look for information, etc.? So and as a photographer, I understand
It comes
you
with a cost.
right. Yeah, it comes with a cost, and that's why I say we're looking at it as a project. We've actually, as I said, we had that discussion at our board meeting last night, and it's been an ongoing discussion. It's developing more and more, but there are a couple of things that happen. We need to get a lot more storage space because there are copious amounts of documentation of Vinci Mass shows, music, etc. And we would like to bring all of that and let CDC be a repository for everything Vinci Mass. We've also talked about linkages with the National Archives, ensuring that we capture, record, and protect the story of Vinci Mass over the years. So, I mean, I appreciate as a photographer, you see it, the opportunity for a lot more portrait work, but we're thinking even deeper than that. But your point is valid.
Because you have lots of Miss SVG, and you know, you should really have a wall every year with the portraits. And
Yes.
I tend,
Yes. So
it's not a last thing, you know.
yeah. So I'm hopeful that we're in a position that when we invite you back to this conference room, there will be some portraits on the wall.
I document the archive.
Okay. So, all right.
Other comments, questions?
You mentioned that when somehow music, branded music, really available on the international market. What are the copyright implications involved with it? There are funding place to ensure of legal representation and those.
Could I just give your voice, Kevin, please? In terms of,
Get branding different music for the export market. Right? I'm asking if there will be any like copyright implications involved and that measures will be put in place to
Well,
Let me take that. It's a good question. It's a very important point, and it goes beyond the CDC. As a matter of fact, it's something which the Department of Culture and the National Cultural Foundation and all of us as stakeholders, we have an important role to play in the intellectual property, ensuring that there's enough training that is taking place with creatives and stakeholders for us of what is copyright, what is intellectual property. It's yours, it's something that you develop, your artistic talent, and it's uniquely yours. And in fact, these are things that we will continue. I know in the past we've had several workshops on these things, but we have to also continue the education, the public education surrounding that, but also put in place a framework to facilitate registration of intellectual property and copyright and so on. Because it's a very important point, and is a direction which we have to take, not just music, but in the broader spectrum of our creatives and the creative space. What is produced here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have to protect it, and we have to brand it, market it, and export it. And that is something that quite naturally is in the works surrounding, whether it's physical or augmented in terms of the metaverse. All of these things we're looking at in a broader scope going forward.
Mr. Minister, just following up on your response to his concern. What about the regional organization where radio stations, dancehall DJs, political meetings all have to pay royalties to the artists? Echo, thanks. What is happening? Because I'll give you an example of how artists lose out. A few years ago, the Jamaica Labour Party had Mr. Greedy Joe as its theme song and is yet to pay the artists, despite having violated every single local, regional, and international copyright law. How do these artists get protected when people will come to a show, use their video, their camera phone, record the artist and or artists, post it on Facebook, persons overseas take it down, play around with it, and then market it as theirs to the detriment of the artist?
Well, naturally, we have to look at immediately there's legal recourse within the common law. There's legislation to protect against that. But obviously, going a bit deeper, ECHO as well, we have to really see how we can look at addressing what are some of the challenges they've had, whether or not we may need to formulate a broader framework for that, a new entity, or possibly resuscitating what is already existing, to really facilitate our creatives. Far too long I've seen producers and artists and songwriters putting together material that they work hard and they pay for. And it's being used without not even asking permission to use it. And it is something that we seriously have to address. And in all of what I've mentioned earlier, and at the Parliament, when I talk about a working group to be established to provide a comprehensive development plan for our creative industry, must capture all of these things. And it's a serious thing that we have to look at, where revenue is being lost by our creatives. And it's something that we have to seriously address.
I see you on the agent to say something as well.
Nobody artists first need to understand that they need to be registered first. Because you can't talk about an entity that has no one who's registered. And it's not just ECHO, it's BMI and all the others. And they operate under one umbrella. So, while I agree, our artists have to take very serious that we must be registered for these organizations to act on your behalf. Right? Because if you're putting music out there and you're not a part of a copyright agency, you really can't protect you.
Yeah. What is the situation with our artists in St. Vincent in terms of them being part of the whole?
Well, the minister mentioned it, the education, and as I said, as a department, as a CDC, who deals with a lot of these things, we have to keep pushing that education out there and give some level of comfort. Because one of the challenges was, we're not seeing the tangible results of being registered with ECHO or whoever it is.
You didn't answer the question. So what is the registration of our local artists like in terms of it?
Oh, well, I wouldn't have an exact figure because different people register with different agencies, right? Lester would be with somebody else, Skinny is with somebody else, Fire is with somebody else.
Okay.
But it's something that we can actually look into also.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Make a contribution, please.
Well, I was just coming around to say that even before Luther steps in, that my chairman has a way of saying CDC is just there to facilitate, thanks for the word, put things in place. But unless we have a Lester producing the music, unless we have a Luther, Fireman, Skinny, and all the other artists out there coming up with the songs, there can't be a carnival. Unless we have mass, unless we have calypso, unless we have pan, we cannot have a carnival. And since we are graced with the presence of these guys this morning, and I can tell you they're right behind us because they were here with us on Saturday as well. Let me get some comments and contributions from them. So I'm very happy that Luther decided to start.
Good morning, guys. I am pretty elated with the announcement of a Vinci Mass 2022. I've been waiting on that now for 2 or 3 years. Now, a lot of preparation goes into the music, which is the driving force behind any festival. We are going into the studio and make several calls and we start recording. Is there any possibility, because as far as I've been hearing, is that we are having Vinci Mass 2022. Is there any possibility that somewhere down the road, April, May, somebody's going to come and tell us that there's no Vinci Mass for whatever reason, and the number one reason may be a spike in COVID cases, because there's some new variant that just came out of the Wuhan lab saying that it may be more deadly than what we ever had. Is there any you foresee any reason that we may have a spike and Vinci Mass 2022 may not be a reality?
I'm gonna let the chairman respond to that.
Yeah.
I know you alluded to it before. What would happen if? But I'll let him repeat it.
Yes.
So, as I indicated a little earlier, um, I don't pretend to be a deity. And so therefore, I cannot look into the future and say what will happen. So in reality, there is a possibility that something can happen, and globally we can go back into a shutdown. The likelihood of it, like it's the first time I'm hearing about the well, okay. I'm surprised they're actually claiming that it came out of the Wuhan lab, because I think the Wuhan lab was still in question from.
Every other week.
Yeah, every other week there's a new variant or subvariant, but so as I said, we at the CDC, and I don't think anybody can tell you what is going to happen in 3 months, 4 months, 6 months down the road. And so there is always the possibility that the world can go back into a global shutdown. I think one of the things that we recognize is that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, throughout the last couple of years of the pandemic, has remained one of the most open, if not the most open, society. And we've managed to survive that way. As I indicated earlier, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the cabinet, has asked us to put forward a proposal where, if everything shuts down, that persons who would have incurred stranded costs, that we give them a best guess as to how they can financially compensate. One of the things I want to caution, though, and it is a battle that I've had for a while, and there are some people who've risen above that, is I want to caution soca, calypso practitioners, and soca also includes raga soca. In fact, if you listen to Mr. Bennett, calypso includes calypso, soca, and raga soca. But I want to encourage our practitioners not to specifically think of releasing music for Vinci Mass, because I know that there's been no Vinci Mass for 2 years, and I know of artists who've released music, who've done very well, who've traveled, etc. So I want us to be cautious that while it very often is the launching pad for putting out music, you can still put out music, and if your music is good enough, you can still take it to the world. I mean, there's been no Trinidad Carnival for 2 years. I think it's 2 years. And they're hoping to have a carnival. They're planning for a carnival in February. But there's been a plethora of music coming out of Trinidad.
Can I have a follow-up comment, please?
Sure.
Right? Because my comment wasn't so much about, let's talk about cost in general, because it will happen with mass and everybody across the board. I'm happy that you addressed that. Some reparation is being spoken about. Now, we seem to be operating different than most countries, in that while others are opening, we are still closing. And we seem to be implementing our own protocols coming out of the Christmas season. I was extremely unhappy with the new protocols. Let me make that public. All right? I was one of the first artists out there doing jingles and PSAs, and I supported the drive in every possible way. And it came to a point where I was highly disappointed that after some events, the only protocol or the only people that seemed to be affected were the vaccinated people and the vaccinated events. It happened at a time whereby there was a spike, but our hospitalization was down. There was nobody at the isolation unit, which means that I'm confident that the vaccine is working. People got COVID, some got mild symptoms, some got sick, but the hospitalization is down, and I did not see any reason to implement those harsh protocols. I was so clear. Right? So I at this stage, I am still cautious that something may happen and we may jump and say, okay, let us lock it down. I am not for that. I'm totally not for that. It must be managed and look at what is happening before we make any harsh decision.
Luther, what I would say to you is I tried my best but failed my medical degree. And so therefore, I rely on the advice of the CMO and her team of trained medical professionals. And we don't set the protocols.
I know that.
We work with the protocols. So
expressing myself.
right. So I think that is a conversation that
And
really,
that's
I think,
with the CMO.
I think you and the CMO really need to sit and work on that. But the CDC, unfortunately, as I said, I don't even think we have a nurse or even, I can't even say that we have first aid class people on our board that we could set medical protocols. So we work with the protocols that are there, and while I understand your concerns and frustration, there's nothing really that the CDC can do about setting protocols. We just have to work.
But can you push back?
Well, again, at the end of it, we rely on the medical professionals. Just like I wouldn't go on stage and pretend to tell Luther how to sing and perform and which one the pants leg he should roll up. Right? I can have an opinion, but at the end of it, we work with the protocols as set by the professionals.
Okay. Right. We have some other Skinny. Talk. Tell me how you feel.
I want to touch back a little bit on something. Luther, pardon my vaccinated while I appreciated what Rodney said, and I appreciated the point that Koja brought up, but I find a little bit Rodney diverted and kind of spared echo some of that blame to kind of put it on the artists. And I want to say that if we as artists are not seeing enough fruitful examples of the benefits of signing up with a company like Echo, hold on, right? We're not going to be motivated to sign up with them. And I want to direct this at you too. That's something that I feel we need to make an intervention for them. Because they show up around Carnival time to collect money from events, claiming that this money is supposed to be for the artists. I never see a money from that yet.
No.
And I hosted my own event and I have to pay Echo to pay me back, and I still haven't seen a cent from it. The other thing is, it's hard for you to come and police events when the basic and actually the most measurable form of collecting these royalties is through the radio stations, because they all have logs, or should have logs. So before you come to an event where you don't know who performing, you don't know what songs they're singing, go to the radio stations, get their logs, and you will know how to apportion the payments from the radio stations to the artists. So before you come to events, I feel like Echo need to stay out the events until they can manage what happens on the radio. That's it first. The second thing is, I think Ricky, I heard you talk about compensation for artists because of the lack of activities that we've had for the last 2 years. I don't think we've gotten any of those either. I'm not sure if you got, maybe you got.
My check name is Delroy and he didn't write a no check.
Okay.
You want to?
I was looking for roadman money.
You see, they're talking while we're talking.
Wait. We get the answer for you.
So,
You want us to respond to that one before you move to the third point?
No, but I want to finish it.
Okay.
I have no confidence in when you say it for this year, if last year it didn't happen, and the year before it didn't happen. So if it does happen, we're talking about retroactively for 2020, 21, and 22.
Well, I'm not sure why you in particular didn't get, but I know there was a stimulus package that happened
2020.
2020.
2020.
Me never get.
It was so small, I didn't notice.
It wasn't a stimulus package, it was a handout.
There was one for the ambassadors, but it was for cultural ambassadors.
No, it was the same.
The down for the CDC.
Yeah, it's all part of the same. Different categories. Today's we could talk about that. Today, we want specifically Vinci Mass. So we want to hear your views on Vinci Mass 2020.
Okay, good. Right.
We're going to hear the CDC politics after.
Okay. Well, it was brought up at the meeting, so I okay, so the first point, you can go and deal with Echo. Ricky, we could talk about the 2 years money, back pay. And as it relates to the staging of Vinci Mass 2022, I must commend the team for braving the cabinet and insisting that we have a Vinci Mass. I mean, I also would like for us to operate within what is realistic of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and stop depending solely on what happens on the international scene, because we are our own people, so we can determine. I feel like sometimes our protocols change when Barbados change, or when they put on CNN and they see something, and I feel we're independent enough to be able to relax our protocols or stiffen them up according to what exists here. Right? I'm happy we're doing a Vinci Mass. And I'm also hopeful that the extra protocol of needing to be boosted, tested, and vaccinated, I hope that slims down a little bit for Vinci Mass, because I mean, we're dependent on people to come to it.
The existing protocols here don't call for testing.
Right.
They only call for vaccinating and appropriate boosting.
And appropriate boosting. Right? So that is something we're going to have a whole campaign on, in terms of appropriately boosted. Because I got vaccinated last year, May, and apparently I might not be able to participate by May. By May I might be deemed unvaccinated. So that is a campaign by itself that I think y'all need to push hard and make sure that it's clear. And I think also we should be a little bit lenient on it too. Because I mean, if a man done go through 2 vaccines last year, I don't think we should penalize him if he hasn't gotten a chance to be boosted. I think we should be a little bit flexible on that and still give credit to the persons who at first, when we went out, we felt as if like it was just one vaccinated thing and we good to go. Now it seems like every 3 months we need to take a jab. You know what I mean? So I feel like we should.
I suspect we need to organize a press conference with you all and the CMO.
Thank you very much.
A lot of the questions that are coming are related to protocols.
But you're our mouthpiece at the end of the day. So when we speak, you know.
We will, like, so the objective of this one is to talk about the Vinci Mass.
Right.
To deal with the backroom business, in the backroom, you know what I mean? So let me hear your views on the Vinci Mass 2020.
Why? Those are my views. You cannot separate Carnival from the protocols that will govern Carnival. Sorry, but on a good note, on a positive note, I am happy we're doing a 2 weeks, and I'm also hopeful that outside of that 2 weeks, private promoters will be allowed to stage their events, because it will be impossible to just cram everything into that 2 weeks. So I'm hoping that will facilitate and
we're looking at all the logistics of everything falling into place now. As I said, we received our mandate on Thursday gone.
Yes.
So we're now trying to gel all the other aspects of it. Right? So there are lots of discussions still to happen.
Yes.
And
I need to go back to copyright and image rights. You have 3 artists, 4 artists here. You have a number of photographers. It is evident over the years that there are persons here, within the private sector especially, and to a certain extent, aided and abetted by government officials, that someone like me or Kingsley can come to an event, and because we are given accreditation to cover that event, that they are emboldened to have unfettered access to our photos and can use it as they wish, without any regard to the image rights of the artist and the copyrights of the photographer. Now, persons may get upset I'm raising this, But this is critical because as a photographer, when I take Luther's photo on stage, I can only use it for editorial purposes unless he gives me written permission that I can sell a photo to Ashford to be used in an advertising capacity. And I must have a copy of the agreement between Ashford, the advertiser, and Luther, the artist. This has been going on for far too long. We need to respect that. We need to protect the artists. And I'm raising this because if Vincy Mas is to be protected, is to be seen as a valued commodity, in the same way other events like the St. Lucia Jazz, the St. Kitts Music Festival, the Dominica Creole Music Festival, just to name a few, are protected, then we have to protect the image rights of those artists. Not everybody with a camera should be given access into an event to just photograph willy-nilly and use and sell photos how they wish.
Thank you very much. Okay. The gentleman is in the far corner. I heard the minister say he stayed up there to work. Fireman, that ain't the where Luther come along and tell you, you know. But because let's speak for yourself.
Yes, yes. Well, I guess Luther said it about vaccination and Skinny said it. I am only here to apologize. I'm apologizing to everybody in St. Vincent and the Grenadines because they say it's me why they had no carnival. some reason. Yes, I dreamed that there was no more carnival. So the cabinet, right, they were waiting on me. So I come back with another dream. So from the time they announced the mass, we ready. So when Carlos gave me that call last night, I say, Hope is ready, we ready. He said yes. So I just come here now to tell all you, we ready. And I'm glad, really, really glad, I tell you, for the CDC to put together this along with cabinet saying yes, time enough for these voices be heard. Fireman, Skinny, Luther, everybody, we ready. We have music ready. I'm here, I want to play something brand new, right? But copywriting we're talking about. So, well, ever since COVID, me, Luther, and a few of the artists, we've been on board, you know, doing ads and all these things. And I'm still encouraging people to take their vaccines and so on. So that will be my job going forward, along with encouraging people because I want to see the stadium full. I miss the stadium. Yes. And a lot of people, can you miss the stadium?
Of course.
We both going to Sokamona.
I miss the rumble.
Unless you're watching me and I see you taking up photos next to me. Alright. Let me do it fair, Skinny. Let me do it fair. This year, me and you in the stadium, and I hope they have 2 crowns for both of us. Right. You want it that way?
Yeah.
Yes, 2 money too, eh? 2 times. But for now, I'm glad for everybody who's been working hard in the background, putting together the mass. And I know the people outside, they're ready for Vincy Mass. So the most I can do is encourage everybody to get vaccinated and, you know, let the thing start. I have to give a round of applause to Ezzy. Because this time around, he will have to walk inland. When I say inland, we're not going to have any rural carnival, so you have less work to do. So, the whole team and everybody here, where we just go out and get everybody on board and, you know, keep the knowledge up about being vaccinated and get the carnival going. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Luther already there? Yes, Luther, well, Luther was a car crumb. So what you think, 3 cars, 3 crumbs?
I go enjoy
Thank you so much, gentlemen. You see, the gentlemen sing. But if there's not a producer of the music, nothing can happen. And if you notice, Lester, put them in the corner there, and he go over there. He want them to know I'm the boss.
The boss, the boss.
You're the boss. So right, Lester, come talk to us, man.
Good day to everybody. Just want to add my sentiments are in line with most of the artists as well. We're definitely glad to see Vincy Mas return. It's been too long, you know. Hard drives can't hold any more songs. We had to get rid of them, we had to throw them out, you know. But I just need to add as well, when we say creatives and we are looking at compensation plans for the artists, remember that there is no artist without the producers. And I find I have to champion the cause because I find too often we, you know what I mean, we give all the artists the props, the praise, the prize, glory, and we forget what is the foundation there. When the artists don't make money, we don't make money as well. You know, so it's not just the artists alone, it's a whole industry. You know, it's us in the background. So when you are deliberating, don't forget us. We here.
How's the take on Vincy Mas?
I think with the lack of Vincy Mas for a couple of years, I think the anticipation is high. And with that, I personally believe that it has the potential to be one of the most energetic Vincy Mas that we've seen, because I personally of the opinion that people would even know how to act when Carnival comes, because you know the longing for it is so, the anticipation is so high right now. So me personally, I'm definitely all on board, 100% behind, you know. And as I said, just like everybody else say, I can't wait for it to come. We already have material ready and waiting just to pull the trigger.
I have one quick comment. one quick comment.
Vincy Mas?
Yes. Actually, it's over you, you know. It's over you. I want to say that I've been to several press conferences, you know, and it's refreshing that you are here. I saw you, when was that? Yesterday, day before? Saturday. That was also refreshing, because normally in these CDC meetings, it's just the CDC people that we're fighting up with, right? Yeah. And there's no government face in it directly. So I want to commend you for being here and taking the time to take it very seriously, you know what I mean? That's comforting to me, to see the minister here. So, good job on being here and standing up behind your words. Ricky, I felt the difference. I mean, that's not to say that what was happening before you came wasn't good, but since you came, I felt a different type of energy. I just want to make a remark on that, all right? I feel your presence. Wherever you're doing, keep doing it. Ashford is the old boy from a long time. No, Ashford is our old boy from a long time.
Same energy.
Yeah, the same energy, but and honestly, I don't know how the CDC would function without Ashford. Yeah, Ashford, trust me, every time something go wrong, something go good, I can call Ashford and get things done. And I just want to say general commendations to the CDC team and the Minister of Culture. That's all I wanted to say.
So just one last thing too. Until we end Vincy Mas 2022, what the minister work on his metaverse behind the scene. We talk Vincy Mas in the physical. Let us talk Vincy Mas in that benefits so many people and players.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much. We have the culture. We have Maxi here, right? And you will be surprised to know that on many occasions I have to say, Max, send down Randy, let me know. And she's our cultural officer. And I just wondered if she agreed with all the sentiments expressed this morning. Max, you agree with that?
Agreed.
Tell us now.
Can I speak on a mask on or take it off?
Bring this
No, I don't bring this Well, as cultural officer, I'd like to commend fully the CDC, the Carnival Development Corporation, for this initiative. I note earlier that Mr. Luther, my good buddy over there, he challenged you. But in this carnival we are pushing, and for the carnival, we have to follow the protocols. There's no if, not maybe. we have to safety ski. As my good friend here say, Emma's brother, that's what I call him. He said that the hype will be so strong, but I want to add, the hype will be so strong because people love for this carnival. They'll dance all in the gutter because the energy is there. It's important for us as leaders, as practitioners, as stakeholders to post safety ski. And the fire is here and the blaming for not in the carnival, good friend of Skinny. I know the artists. I've been in this business long time, never mind mini dance, but now I follow music. And Skinny knows that, okay? So push the safety and let's get this thing done. Now earlier there was some talks about copyright and so on. The department has always sought ways and means to educate our people. But the twist to the story, most time we have these workshops, people don't show up. But this is a new year, so maybe when we have it again, they'll come. So don't always blame the department. We try, but artists don't show up. And we have things to argue with and deal with this echo so that our people can be properly compensated. But overall, I support the carnival. I just want everyone to be safe. The question is, how safe can they be? All the protocols get vaccinated, and together we can do this. But safety is the operative word. And with that, I think I've said enough. So thank you as much for
When Kingsley said he wanted to see the wall decorated, right? What he did not say is that he wanted to see one of his pics go up first. So at this point, I'll invite the chairman of the CDC, and I'll invite Kingsley. He has a presentation to make to the CDC. You like it? You want to know from there? Oh. Yeah, man, them fellas to come. Go right there. Take it out, take it out now. Take it out now, take it out.
As you know, a lot of the artists so I'm saying that come this way. I'm just saying that, okay, yeah. Look over here, Ricky. That's where your body shot at. Do you have a that's where you most of? I was saying that CDC could make money, but it seems as if you guys don't want to make money. Because with the number of image you have at CDC, you can do things, and they don't have to be big. This is something that I can sell to the tourists because it's put in the bag and it's in the water. It's done on canvas, they get wet, you just have to wash it off. You don't have to order this side. So I think there's a project that you guys should be looking at.
Thank you. And one of the things I want to say is that we spoke about the carnival store downstairs. That's going to happen. But it's not only going to be materials for people to build masks. We will also be doing branded Vinci mask paraphernalia, etc. And again, we spoke about the merchandising coming to the website where you would be able to purchase stuff over the website, etc. The only thing that I'm now concerned about is whether I have intellectual property rights to
No, but that's where that comes in, because if I got loot on it, you're going to be loot.
right. So, and what I really
But no, that's reality. Reality.
No, no, she was asking which steel orchestra, Genesis Steel Orchestra.
I really don't know.
So, I put it around this morning.
Okay. So let me.
I just want to mention one thing.
Okay. Mr. Chair. Minister, you want to say anything in closing? Okay.
All right, so just before the CEO wraps up the session, I just want to make mention of the fact that we have been monitoring what has been going on around the region. We're looking very closely at what Trinidad is going to do. and how that pans out. We still intend to use our contacts throughout the region to push Vincimas, because we really have to get actively into the promotion of Vincimas. And one of the things that we will be doing is on, I think it's next week, a team that will be traveling to Dubai as part of a much larger contingent for Vinci Day. We've actually been allocated 2 days where we can showcase Vincimas. And so we know that the expo in Dubai is 190 countries around the world. And so we think that is a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to showcase Vincimas. And so our practitioners who are up there, that would be an added part of their participation, the promotion of Vincimas, a taste of Vincimas in Dubai. And as I said, that basically, as of today, we've kicked off our promotion for Vincimas. So expect to see the hottest carnival in the Caribbean on people's lips for the next 6 months and more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And on that note, let me thank each and everyone who came out here to make this press conference a success. It has been. I know it's about 5 to 12, Luther. I don't have lunch, but I have a snack outside that we can all enjoy. Thank you so much for coming again.